So the diamond is the metaphor for the ultimate. And this core reality that we're talking about today is an ultimate. It can't be divided. And that's why we call it core. It's like an onion skinning an onion, going down, deeper, deeper, deeper. What's at the center of an onion?
An onion.
The onion pit, obviously.
An onion pit.
It's empty.
Or it's empty. You know, there's a lack of onion, ultimately, when you get down to the middle. An absence. So that's something that we want you guys to understand, that core reality is actually an absence. And that's a little bit of a tricky subject. We're going to go into that a little bit more right now. This is a big topic. All the stuff you can see somehow. You may be wondering, why do we need to talk about all the stuff in the universe that exists? The reason we're going to talk about this, and we're just going to give you a brief primer on all the things that exist in the universe, is because we want to know where to look for core reality. We don't want to waste time looking for it in the wrong place. So we're going to give you some clues about where to look for core reality. We've talked a little bit about what it looks like, that it's invisible, that it's unchanging. But where are we going to find it? So we're going to divide everything in the universe into things that exist and change, and things that exist and don't change. We're going to leave out things that are imaginary. You know, things that don't exist at all, they're in some other universe. They're not in this universe. So we're going to break everything down into these two categories. So things that exist and don't change is actually where we're going to look for core reality. Something that does exist but doesn't change. Can an absence exist? That's something that you can chew on. But we're going to start out with the easier side, things that exist and change. This is Grand Central Station. We have physical things, we have mental things, and we have this funny little box in ancient Asian ideas called things that are neither physical nor mental. And I'm just going to touch on that briefly. That is a concept, like a name, like Denise. Denise is both her body and her mind and my ideas about her. It's a label. So you really can't say it's physical, but it's also not mental because it's made up of physical things. So concepts, names go in that middle green box there. And another interesting thing that goes there is the potential that we have to see things the way they are. And that is the seeds we've planted in the past. So the pen seed that's waiting to come out and be the pen for me when I need a pen, and a pen that has ink in it, by the way, is here in this middle box, okay? So physical things. Any examples? You guys have any examples of physical things?
Trolleys.
Yeah. The chair you're sitting in, the ground we're standing on, the feet. Pretty much everything you see in Grand Central Station is a physical thing, really. Also, in that box, they'll put our mental ideas about physical things, like the memory of a chair or a picture in your mind of a physical thing, because it's something physical, you're just maybe not seeing it right now. So this is where many of the things that we can ever think about are going to be. But we're concerned right now with mental things, because our ability to understand core reality is going to be a mental thing. And we're going to talk now about two different kinds of mental things: accurate perceptions and mistaken perceptions. A mistaken perception is when your mind is affected by drugs or alcohol, for example. Then that's not an accurate perception. If you're very jealous, you think that your boyfriend is texting another girl, and you get angry, really strong emotions can taint our perception, and we're actually not seeing clearly. So those are a couple of examples. There's also the example of the rope that is coiled up on the ground when I'm walking out in my yard and I think it's a snake. So we can have a mistaken perception that way. But most of everything that goes on in our minds is actually an accurate perception. We're having a thought, and those are considered accurate. Now, the accurate perceptions can be broken into two things as well. And this is really what we want to talk about today. Let's go to the right side, the deductive accurate perception. This means that we are understanding things indirectly. So an example of that would be if I hold out this pen to you and you look at it, are you seeing it directly or indirectly?
Directly.
Directly, right. And now if I take the pen and I hold it behind my back and you listen carefully, is the pen still there? Is it behind my back?
Yes. Yeah.
And what did you use to be able to know that? You didn't hear it fall. So you used your logic to know that the pen was still here. So indirect is just as valid. It's still a valid perception. So the understanding that I have so far of core reality is all over here. I've used my perceptions resulting from good logic. I've also tried it out, and it seems like my life changes when I use these ideas in my life, so I'm using this scientific process of trying it. And then on the right side, perceptions resulting from trust. An example of that is if Morgan tells Kelly that there's a really great new trail that she found up by Lizard Head Pass, because we can only get to Lizard Head because it's closed. So you can ski up by Lizard Head, but it's a secret path. Kelly's going to be interested in trying that because she trusts Morgan's opinion, and Morgan knows what Kelly likes. You know, so there's no reason for Morgan to steer Kelly up to a dangerous path where she's going to fall off a cliff, and she trusts her. So it's likely that Kelly will go try it. Okay, so these two things, this logic and listening to someone you trust, are the two main ways that I have experienced core reality. This middle one is really just thrown in here. It's not super important for us right now. By convention, that's like we all agree on something. If I tell you that I bought a car and it's a lemon, you guys think that it's actually a lemon, that I'm driving around in a lemon? No.
That's not what that means?
What you know, because it's in our vernacular, that a lemon means something that doesn't work well. So by convention just means something that we all accept, you know, we all know it to be true. But the main thing I want you to know is that an indirect perception, here they call it deductive, accurate perception, can be gained from logic and from listening to someone that you trust. Now over here, the direct accurate perception is actually what this talk is about today. If we were doing the whole level 7, it would take a lot longer, and we would give you a bunch of ideas about how to trigger this direct accurate perception. Janice hinted at this, that we have heard from people that we trust that it's possible if you could slow your mind down enough. And usually this is said to happen in a meditative state, that you could see that the world is coming from you, and you could see what lies beneath that, this emptiness. So that's what we'd all like to do, because then we wouldn't be having to go by being pretty sure that this is how things work. But until you have this experience, you probably will never be 100% sure. So here's the whole chart. You guys just learned about all the universe. You learned about where you could see emptiness directly, and we didn't talk too much about things that exist and don't change. So I would just like to say about things that exist and don't change, there's very few things in this category. One of them, which is similar to the idea of emptiness in a way, I'd just like to touch on briefly, and that's empty space, because it doesn't change. We're not talking about outer space here. We're talking about the space that my body is in. So if I'm here, I'm standing in some space. It's the place I'm in. And if I try to go over here, this space is occupied, occupado. If I try to go over here, it's not occupied. But the space itself doesn't change. Okay? This is just a little tickler for your brain, because that's over. Space is in this box too. And so is emptiness, the absence of anything coming from its own side. And we each have our own absence. I'd like to talk just a little bit more about direct and indirect perceptions. I think you guys really have this, but I wanted to give you an example from my own life. I did not go to a tropical beach for a long time until I was in my 20s. But as I was growing up, I saw Hawaii 5-0.
Jerome, you're needed in the front office.
Oops, sorry.
Jerome, please come to the front desk.
Jerome. I saw tropical beaches on TV and in movies, and the Brady Bunch went to Hawaii. You guys, did you ever see the Brady Bunch? Yeah. Only some of you maybe, but I always thought it looked so beautiful, the palm trees, the sand, and the turquoise water, but I hadn't been there. But I wanted to go, and I had this sense that it would really be amazing. But until I actually went, when I was in my 20s, and I flew over to Hawaii and got to be on a white sand beach with the palm trees and the pina colada, and then you go and snorkel in that water, which is the perfect temperature, like a bathtub. And I thought snorkeling would be scary because I'm a little bit claustrophobic and I don't like water very much. I'm afraid of it. But it wasn't. It was like floating in just this most beautiful atmosphere and seeing these amazing fish. I mean, I could never have known how amazing it was until I did it. So that's the difference between direct and indirect. I'd like to go back to Katie's example of when she was talking about how we see the pen. And the pen is like a blank screen. The seeds in our mind are like a projector. So the mind is like a projector, and the seeds are coming out and going on that blank screen. When you're watching a movie, you know that's happening, right? Maybe. You might get so caught up in the movie that you forget that what's going on the screen is actually coming in a projection down from. So when we're watching a movie, we're having the indirect experience of the image being projected from the projector, because we can't see the hero and the heroine kissing as they go flying through the air, right? We can't see that, but we know that it's probably the way it's happening. So that would be indirect. So the direct experience of watching a movie would be if you could see the little people flying through the air. That would be the seeds ripening, and that you could actually slow time down so much that you could see the screen being blank in between each frame going on there. So if you could experience the blankness of the screen while you were watching the movie. Does that make sense? So direct and indirect. So think of our reality like that. Right now we're all kind of in the indirect experience of how things work if we're thinking a little bit about this concept of core reality. It's kind of like when you think about someone you really care about, or maybe you even get to talk with them on the phone, or you get to Skype with them. It's never going to be the same as being there with someone and being able to give them a hug. So that's the difference. We have Janice next. She's going to help us understand a little bit more about absence and how something can be absent and still exist.
Thank you, Alex. Okay, so Alex just talked about where emptiness exists in the universe. And in order to better understand that, I want to do a little mini course in what makes a thing a positive thing and what makes a thing a negative thing. Well, when you have a positive thing, you don't have to eliminate anything else to see that positive thing. For example, the fire extinguisher, it's red. Okay, all of you look at the fire extinguisher and you just see red. You don't have to eliminate anything to see that red. Is that correct? So that's a positive. And a negative thing is, in order to find it, you have to eliminate everything that isn't it in order to find the thing that's the negative thing, the absence of something. And then when we understand that, there are two types of negatives. The first type is when something isn't a certain type of something else. And the second type is a simple absence of something. Don't worry, if you don't get it, I'm gonna use some examples. Okay, so the type of absence, when something isn't a type of something, if I were to say, for example, I know, get ready for this. get ready for this. I am not the Queen of England. It's a simple statement that you are going to see a person up here, but a person who is not a Queen of England type of person. Or if I brought Coda up here, and I said, Coda is not a corgi. You would see Coda being this dog up here, who is not another type of dog. So that's when something isn't another type of thing. There's no person missing, just a person up here who is not Queen Elizabeth. And no Coda up here that is not a corgi. Okay, so the second type of negative is the simple absence of something. And this one, it's fun to explain because I like to use this story about my mom. So my mom is 87 years old and she lives in Montrose. And when I go over to visit her, I like to take her grocery shopping or out of her house because she's there all the time, just sitting there, and it's nice to get her out and about. So we go down and we go to Safeway. That's where her family has traditionally shopped forever. So we go to Safeway and my mom pushes her cart around the store, gathering coffee and whatever she thinks she's going to need for the next week. So by the time we get out of the store, she's pretty tired. And we get into the car, and because she's worked so hard, and because I really like ice cream and so does she, and because Montrose still has a Dairy Queen, we decide to go to the Dairy Queen to get ice cream. So my mom's worked really hard. So we're not going to walk into Dairy Queen, we're going to use the drive-up window. And we get there and I order my mom her small chocolate sundae and I order myself my small chocolate dip cone. So then we pull up to the drive-up window and I see her sundae, it's ready there for me to pick up. But you know they have this policy at Dairy Queen that they won't give you the ice cream until you pay for it. Well, I don't know, I guess they've had experience where people drive off with ice cream. But anyway, I reach for my wallet, and I have a rather large bag, it's in the back of the room. I reach for my wallet to pay for the ice cream so we can get it. Well, I look in it and I don't see my wallet in my bag. There's an absence of a wallet in my bag. So, well, I think, well, maybe it's under my car seat. I look there, I look under my mom's, I look in the back, and I look in the glove box, I look in the console, and there is no wallet in the car. The car has 100% absence of a wallet. So guess what? We don't get any ice cream. But just to let you know, I drive back to Safeway and I check the shopping cart and it also has an emptiness of a wallet. So I go inside and they tell me some nice customer had returned my wallet. So then I bring it back to the car. My car no longer has an absence of a wallet. So that's the end of that story. But that's a simple absence of something that could exist. My wallet could exist, but there's no wallet in the car. And that brings us to the fact that there are two types of absences. There's the absence of something that could exist, like my wallet, or the absence of something that could never exist. Okay, so now I'm going to tell you a few little stories around that. If I were to ask you, especially those of you who work in this area and know this is a new building, are there any mice in this room? Before you answered me, yeah, a little panicked look. Before you answered me, you might have to look under your chairs or back in the cabinets or around the food to see if there's any evidence of mice before you could say no. So, no, there's no mice in this building. Okay, but if I were to ask you, is there a 30-foot tall, two-headed purple elephant in this room? What would you say? No. No. And why would you say that? Because it's the absence of something that could never exist. And why is that important? These two types of absences, one that can exist and one that can't exist. Because in our surface reality, we're always looking for something that exists this way, something that can't exist anyway. Nothing can exist from its own side. It all comes from our seeds, but we're always looking for it. So when we understand that, we'll stop looking for pins that exist from their own side, and we'll start realizing that, yeah, there might not be a pin on that table because it could exist, but a pin that could exist from its own side could never exist, right? So that's the two absences, and those are the types of negatives that we deal with all the time. But we're always surrounded with this idea that you know, Ben comes from Ben. If Ben's nice today, it's because Ben decided to be nice. It has nothing to do with me. I didn't do anything. But that's not true. If Ben's nice today, it's because I was nice to somebody last week. So when we really understand this, it's just one more tool for us to kind of get to that layers of onion to where we can understand we are creating our reality every moment of the day. So it's just one more tool for us to get closer to that direct perception of emptiness. And that brings me to Mount Everest idea. So Mount Everest, it wasn't summited until 1953. No one had ever been able to do it. And then in 1953, Tenzing Norgay and Sir Edmund Hillary made it to the top. They did something that had never been done before. And that's what we're trying to accomplish. We're trying to do something that we in this room have never done before. So in order to do that, we need to find a path to do that. So when I'm bringing up Mount Everest, because now that it's been summited, many people have been able to summit it after Sir Edmund Hillary and Tenzing Norgay did. Why? Because they left a map, they left a guide, they left instructions of how to do it. The last 40 feet of Mount Everest are some of the most treacherous of the whole climb. But they found a way to do it, and it's now called the Hillary Step. So if these modern day mountaineers that are summiting Mount Everest now are following that path that's been made, wouldn't we want to use the same example? Wouldn't we want to find somebody who had seen emptiness directly and get instructions from them and learn from them? It's something that we've never done before, so we're going to need to learn from somebody who's done it. And that's what I'm trying to imply here today, is that we're going to need a guide. And where are we going to find this guide? Do we know anybody who's actually seen emptiness directly? Well, we can go back to the ancient Asian literature, because they've left a map for us. So if we can't work with someone directly who's experienced it, we can go back to the literature and those who have studied it and can explain this path to us, and we can find that path for ourselves so that we can find how we're creating our world and see it directly. It's not easy. I mean, it'd be like learning quantum physics from a comic book, you know, instead of Einstein. We want to learn from the best. Or if it's actually theoretically possible that we could learn to play the piano from watching YouTube videos, but really, if we want to become a master and really get to our goal, we need to work with the master who can teach us to be a master. So our goal here today is for each one of you to start applying these tools. So first, you can prove to yourself that this works indirectly by using the 4 steps. You've had the indirect understanding that the pen is coming from you. And if you use the 4 steps on something that you really want, something measurable, to prove to yourself that this system works, you're just that much closer. You're planting those seeds to see it directly. And that's our goal for all of us. Because, as I said before, wouldn't it be great to live a life free of fear, free, and full of love, and trusting that we know without a doubt that the world is coming from us, and because it's coming from us, we can do something to make a difference. Thank you, guys. Thank you very much. Thank you for coming today.
We'll do a group photo.
Yeah, we'll do a group photo, and then we have lots more food, and I would encourage you to please, if you have questions or comments, please talk to Katie or Alex or I or to each other. We just are so grateful to have you here today and give us this opportunity to talk about what we are passionate about, because we want everybody to succeed.
Thank you. Did you turn the camera off? I'm so strong.